Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttamaśloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiti Om Ajnanaतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदामह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. I read from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are starting with chapter 10, Divisions of the Creation. So this is Canto 3, chapter 10, Divisions of the Creation. So in this chapter we have seen there are 4 sections. Section 1 to 3, Vidura's inquiry about Lord Brahma's creation. Section 4 to 10, Lord Brahma performs the penance and he creates the 14 worlds. Text 11 to 13, third section, where there is characteristics of time, eternal time, and its lakshana. And from text 14 to 30, 10 divisions of creation. So we begin with text 1. Vidura uvacha antarhite bhagavati brahmaloka pitamaha prajasa sarja katidha daihat kitir manasir vibhu. Translation.
Vidura said, O great sage, please let me know how Brahma, the grandfather of the planetary inhabitants, created the bodies of the living entities from his own body and mind after the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So here Vidura is asking, O great Maitreya Muni, how did Brahma, who is the Lokapitamaha, Bhagavati Brahma, he is after the Antarhite Bhagavati, after the Supreme Personality of Godhead disappeared from the vision of Brahmaji, how did Brahma, who is a Lokapitamaha, Pracha Sasarja Katidha, how did he created the bodies of the living entities from his own body and mind after the Lord disappeared? Text 2. Ye च मे भगवन् पृष्टा त्वयर्था बहुवित्तमा तान् वदस्वान् अपूर्वेण छिन्दीन सर्वसंशयान्. Translation.
O greatly learned ones, kindly eradicate all my doubts and let me know of all that I have inquired from you from the beginning to the end. Purport. Vidura asked all relevant questions of Maitreya because he knew well that Maitreya was the right person to reply to all the points of his inquiries. One must be confident about the qualifications of his teacher. One should not approach a layman for replies to specific spiritual inquiries. Such inquiries, when replied with imaginative answers by the teacher, are a program for wasting time.
So here Viduraji says, O Maitreya Muni, O vastly learned one, ye Bhagavan. So here the word Bhagavan is used for Maitreya Muni, who is very vastly learned, Bahuvittamah. I am asking all these queries and all this samshaya. Please eradicate me and explain me from the beginning to the end. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Vidura asked all the relevant questions to Maitreya Muni. As Maitreya Muni was Bahuvittamaha, he was vastly learned personality. And Prabhupada says the student must be confident about the qualifications of his teacher. And one should not approach some layman who will give some imaginary answer and which is simply a waste of one's valuable time. So one should approach a bona fide authority who has heard and read in parampara and not giving some answers from his own fertile brain, which may appear very intellectually titillating, but has no very foundation in Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Text 3. Suta uvacha evam sachoditastena kshatrā kaushara virmuni pritah pratyayatan prashnan hridisanastha bhargava. Translation.
Translation. Suta Goswami said, O son of Bhrigu, the great sage Maitreya Muni, thus hearing from Vidura, felt very much enlivened. Everything was in his heart, and thus he began to reply to the questions one after another. Purport. The phrase Suta Vacha, Suta Goswami said, appears to indicate a break in the discourse between Maharaja Parikshit and Sukadev Goswami. While Sukadev Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, Suta Goswami was only one member of a large audience. But Suta Goswami was speaking to the sages of Naimasaranya, headed by sage Saunaka, a descendant of Sukadev Goswami. This, however, does not make any substantial difference in the topics under discussion. Hare Krishna.
So now, Suta Uvacha. Suta Goswami said, the discussion is going on between Vidura and Maitreya. How suddenly Suta Uvacha. So, Suta Goswami said, O son of Bhrigu, O Bhargava, the great sage Maitreya Muni. So, Suta Goswami here is addressing to Shaunakadi Rishi. And Shaunakadi Rishi, Prabhupada says here, although Suta Goswami is speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya, he is headed by Shaunakadi Rishi, who is a descendant of Shukadev Goswami, and therefore he is called as Bhargava here. Maitreya Muni thus felt very enlivened by the inquiries from Vidura, and thus he began to reply the questions one after another. So here are three names. Kshatra. Kshatra is the Vidura. Kaushara. Kaushara is the son of sage Kaushara, and Bhargava. Okay, everyone's ancestry, Purvaja, is being remembered here. Kshatra, Kaushara, Bhargava. So Bhargava is for the Shaunakadi Rishi, Kaushara is for the Maitreya, and Kshatra is for the Vidura. And all this is how the Purvajas, they are being remembered here in this beautiful verse. Text 4. Now we begin the second section of this chapter, where Lord Brahma is going to perform the penance and create the 14 planetary systems. Text 4 to 10. Maitreya uvacha virinchopi tatha chakre divyam varshashatam tapaha atmani atmanamaveshya yathaha bhagavan ajaha. Translation.
The greatly learned sage Maitreya said, O Vidura, Brahma thus engaged himself in penances for 100 celestial years, as advised by the personality of Godhead, and applied himself in devotional service to the Lord. Purport: that Brahma engaged himself for the personality of Godhead Narayana means that he engaged himself in the service of the Lord. That is the highest penance one can perform for any number of years. There is no retirement from such service, which is eternal and ever encouraging. Hare Krishna.
So now Brahmaji, he began, Maitreya Uvacha, Virinchopi, Virinchi is Brahma, Api, in this manner, Tatha Chakre, Divyam Varshashatam Tapaha. Varshashata, 100 years, Divyam means these are the 100 years of the celestial demigod years. Brahmaji began to worship, began to perform the tapa. And Prabhupada says the tapa here is Brahmaji was engaged in very intense devotional service applied himself in devotional service. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada further explains, to be engaged in with Supreme Lord means one has to be engaged in serving the Supreme Lord. This is the basic definition of bhakti. Sarvopadhimi nirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So this is how Brahmaji engaged. And bhakti is the highest penance that one can perform for any number of years. Naturally, when somebody is engaged in some activity, there is always a retirement. Why there is a retirement? Either the person becomes fed up with the activities, or his motives are achieved of financial stability or something, or the employer he becomes uh, he becomes doubtful whether the person may give so much of output for as per his age. So there is always a retirement for the material activity, but for the spiritual activity, Prabhupada says there is no retirement for devotional service. This is this is eternal and ever encouraged. Text 5. त्वद्विलोक्याब्ज सम्भूतो वायुना यदि स्थितः पद्मम् अम्बश्च तत्काल कृतवीर्येण कंपितम्. Translation.
Thereafter, Brahma saw that both the lotus on which he was situated and the water on which the lotus was growing were trembling due to a strong violent wind. Purport. The material world is called illusory because it is a place of forgetfulness of the transcendental service of the Lord. Thus, one engaged in the Lord's devotional service in the material world may sometimes be very much disturbed by awkward circumstances. There is a declaration of war between the two parties, the illusory energy and the devotee, and sometimes the weak devotees fall victim to the onslaught of the powerful illusory energy. Lord Brahma, however, was sufficiently strong by the causeless mercy of the Lord, and he could not be victimized by the material energy. Although it gave him cause for anxiety when it managed to totter the existence of his position. Hare Krishna.
So now, thereafter, Brahma saw the lotus on he was situated and the water beneath. They were trembling due to a strong, violent wind. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the material world is illusory because it is a place of forgetfulness of the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. So this is the place where Krishna bhuliya jeev. One forgets Krishna, one forgets devotional service to the Krishna, and one gets captivated by Maya. Krishna bhuliya jeev, bhogavancha kare. And this material world is called as a Vishama Jagat. Why Vishama? Because there are many awkward situations. Why? Because there is a war between the two parties. Prabhupada says the Maya and the devotee. So devotee, by becoming a devotee, a living entity rages a war against Maya, and thus there may be awkward situations, and sometimes a weak devotee may fall victim to the onslaught of powerful material energy. Right? We have seen that verse where it is said that apakva, bhajan apakva, athapate tato yadi, bhajan apakva. So if one is apakva in one's bhajan, there is a chance of falling down. Lord Brahma, however, was sufficiently strong and he was not victimized, although these situations, these awkward situations of a violent wind, where the entire lotus, water, everything was trembling, gave him sufficient anxiety. So, in devotional service, time to time, there will be anxieties in our life. However, one should be strong enough in the association of the devotees that one still holds on to devotional service. This is very important. And the anxiety will pass away in the due course of time. And one will be come back to the natural position of being a devotee of the Lord. Text 6. तपसा ह्येदमानेन विद्यया चात्मसंस्थया विज्ञानबलोन्यपादवायुसहाम्बसा. Translation.
Long penance and transcendental knowledge of self-realization had matured Brahma in practical knowledge, and thus he drank the wind completely along with the water. Purport: Lord Brahma's struggle for existence is a personal example of the continued fight between the living entities in the material world and the illusory energy called Maya. Beginning from Maya down to this age, Beginning from Brahma down to this age, the living entities are struggling with the forces of material nature. By advanced knowledge in science and transcendental realization, one can try to control the material energy, which works against our endeavors. And in the modern age, advanced material scientific knowledge and penance have played very wonderful roles in controlling the powers of material energy. Such control of the material energy, however, can be most successfully carried out if one is a soul surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and carries out his order in the spirit of loving transcendental service.
So Brahmaji here, the long penance and the transcendental knowledge, Vidya and Tapasa, matured Brahma in Vijnana, the practical knowledge. Thus, he drank the wind completely along with the water. Look at this. He drank the wind, which is the tremendous wind, violent wind, along with the devastating water. Brahmaji drank it completely. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that Brahma's struggle for existence is the personal example for continued fight between living entity and Maya. So it is not that Maya is troubling only us, Maya is troubling everyone along with right from Brahmaji. Beginning from Brahma down to this age, living entities are struggling with the forces of material nature. Currently, we may appear very successful with the scientific knowledge to control Maya, material nature in some way, but Prabhupada says one can better control Maya by surrendering to the Supreme Lord than taking shelter of modern science. Right. दैवी एषा गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामे ये प्रपद्यन्ते maya metam taranti te. Taranti means very easily one can cross over maya by taking shelter of the Supreme Lord and not by so much of material advancement, because at any point of time material advancement can become heavy. The material nature can become heavy. Like we have seen that Kalpana Chawla went up and one parameter out of 20,000 parameters went wrong. And while the return journey, the entire rocket was into flames, and the material nature won over the struggle of the living entity to escape the laws of gravity. So, although with scientific knowledge and penance, one can try to control the material nature, but a better way to control material nature is surrender unto the Supreme Lord in, Prabhupada says, in the spirit of loving devotional service. Text 7. त्वद्विलोक्य वियाद्व्यापि पुष्करं यदधिष्ठितम् अनेन लोकान् प्राग्लीनान् कल् कल्पितास्मिति चिन्तयत्. Translation.
Thereafter, he saw that the lotus on which he was situated was spread throughout the universe, and he contemplated how to create all the planets which were previously merged in that very same lotus. Purport: the seeds of all the planets in the universe were impregnated in the lotus on which Brahma was situated. All the planets were already generated by the Lord, and all the living entities were also born in Brahma. The material world and the living entities were all already generated in seedling forms by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Brahma was to disseminate the same seedlings all over the universe. The real creation is therefore called Sarga, and later on, the manifestation by Brahma is called Visarga.
Yeah. Thereafter, he saw the lotus on which situated spread throughout the universe. Now he contemplated how to create the universe, how to create the planet and the living entities. And the planets are previously merged in the very same lotus. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the real creation is called as Sarga. So Sarga is the real creation of the Bija, right? Later on, manifestation of Brahma is called as Visarga. So Brahma's role here is more like a gardener who is the Bija of the planets, the Bija of the living entities. They are already being generated in the seedling form by the Supreme Lord, and Brahmaji is only going to water this Bija in the sense that only going to fructify them. But this is the original creation is Sarga, creation of the Bija, and the secondary creation. Therefore, it is called as, the secondary creation. Why secondary? Because primary creation is Sarga, and the secondary creation is Visarga, which is by Brahmaji. Text 8. पद्मकोशं तदाविश्य भगवत्कर्मचोदितः एकं व्यभाङ्गे दुरुधा त्रिधा भाव्यं द्विसप्तधा. Translation.
Thus, engaged in the service.
Thus engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Brahma entered into the whole of the lotus, and as it spread all over the universe, he divided it into three divisions of worlds, and later into 14 divisions.
So thus Brahmaji engaged in the service, he entered into the stem whorl of the lotus, and this was spread all over the universe, and he divided into three divisions of the world: upper, middle, lower planetary systems, and then Dvisaptadha. Dvisaptadha is 2 into 7, that is the 14 divisions of the world. So 3 sections and 14 divisions, that is how being divided by Brahmaji. Text 9. एतावान् जीवलोकस्य संस्थाभेदः समावृतः धर्मस्य हि अनिमित्तस्य विपाकः परमेष्ठ्यसौ. Translation.
Lord Brahma is the most exalted personality in the universe because of his causeless devotional service unto the Lord in mature transcendental knowledge. He therefore created all the 14 planetary divisions for inhabitation by the different types of living entities. Purport. The Supreme Lord is the reservoir of all the qualities of the living entities. The conditioned souls in the material world reflect only part of those qualities, and therefore they are sometimes called pratibimbas. The pratibimba living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, have inherited different proportions of his original qualities, and in terms of their inheritance of these qualities, they appear as different species of life and and are accommodated in different planets according to the plan of Brahma. Brahma is the creator of the three worlds, namely the lower planets called the Patal Lokas, the middle planets called the Bhur Lokas, and the upper planets called the Swar Lokas. Still higher planets such as Maharloka, Tapoloka, Satyaloka, and Brahmaloka do not dissolve in the devastating water. This is because of the causeless devotional service rendered unto the Lord by their inhabitants, whose existence continues up to the end of Dviparadha time, when they are generally liberated from the chain of birth and death in the material world.
So Brahmaji here is called as Parameshthi. Parameshthi is the most exalted personality in the universe, Lord Brahma. Why is most exalted? Because of his causeless devotional service unto the Supreme Lord in the maturity of the knowledge. He created the 14 planetary systems, and thus which will be inhabited by different types of living entities. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the Supreme Lord is the reservoir of all guna. Right? We have seen the Lord is also known as Gunamayi, because Gunamaya means he has all the transcendental qualities. And when the Jiva reflects a particular quality to certain minute extension, he is called as Pratibimba. Thus, different jivas reflect different qualities of the Lord, and therefore there are different Pratibimbas. And thus, they will be awarded different stages of life, different forms of the life according to plan of Brahmaji. So Brahmaji here creates the three worlds: Svargaloka, Pataloka, and other lokas, the middle planetary systems. And out of these 14 worlds, Prabhupada writes here that top four, Maharlok, Tapalok, Satyalok, Brahmalok, they are immune to devastation by the dint of their devotional service. They continue their existence up to Dri Parardha time, and generally then they are, along with Brahmaji, after the final dissolution, all the inhabitants finally come back to Godhead along with Lord Brahma. Text 10. Vidura uvacha yathatha bahurupasya hareradbhuta karmana kālakyam lakshanam brahman yatha varnayana prabho. Translation.
Vidura inquired from Maitreya, O my Lord, O greatly learned sage, kindly describe eternal time, which is another form of the Supreme Lord, the wonderful actor. What are the symptoms of that eternal time? Please describe them to us in detail. Purport: the complete universe is a manifestation of varieties of entities, beginning from the atoms up to the gigantic universe itself, and all is under the control of the Supreme Lord in his form of kāla, or eternal time. The controlling time has different dimensions in relation to particular physical embodiments. There is a time for atomic dissolution and a time for the universal dissolution. There is a time for the inhalation of the body of the human being, and there is a time for the inhalation of the universal body. Also, growth, development, and resultant actions all depend on the time factor. Vidura wanted to know in detail the different physical manifestations and their time inhalations. Hare Krishna. Times of inhalation.
Vidura inquired from Maitreya, O my Lord, O vastly learned sage, please explain to us the Kala, which is the another form of the Hari, who is very famous for his Adbhuta Karmana. Kalakyam Lakshanam Brahman. Please explain what are the symptoms of the eternal time. And Varnaya, please explain in great detail. So here is inquiring about Kala and the characteristics Lakshana of the time. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the complete universe is a manifestation of varieties of entities under the tight control of Kala, which is representation of the Supreme Lord. Now, very amazing statement. The controlling time has different dimensions in relation to particular physical embodiment. This is precisely what is the quantum physics is theory of relativity. Time is relative, right? Time will act on the body of the human being, body of the demigods, body on different entities. Their growth, development, other actions will all depend on the time factor, right? Just like ant will grow old in couple of days, have kids in fifth, sixth day, and will die in 14 days. We have that Solomon Grundy song, right? Died on Sunday. So this is the time which is extremely powerful, and this is the powerful representation within the material universe. And here Vidura is asking that, my dear Maitreya, please explain all this in great detail. So now we begin with the third section of this chapter, which is text 11 to 13. In the answer, Maitreya Muni is going to explain what is Kāla and Lakshana of the Kāla. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, one small question.
Yeah.
I was just like, so Brahma did tapasya for 100 celestial years. That's what it was
Yes.
written. So
Divyam.
so his lifetime itself is 100 years, right? So which celestial years he's talking about? Like ours is solar years, for example. So
100 celestial years of the demigods, it is explained.
okay, celestial of the
Yeah.
demigods. Okay,
Yes. So 100 celestial years of the demigods.
okay. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So in the beginning, he did 1,000 years of tapasya. That's also celestial years of demigods level only.
Yeah, that is the celestial years of the demigods.
Okay. So is it like 6 months? Is like 1 year is there?
Yeah,
6
right. You
months.
know, one solar year is 1 day of the demigods, right?
1 day of demigods.
One
Okay.
full day of the demigod. So within that also, it is explained in Manusmriti very beautifully. The day of the demigod is called as Uttarayana, and the night of the demigod is called as Dakshinayana.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, and
Oh,
that's
so
why
it's
Uttarayana is considered more auspicious than Dakshinayana,
yes,
which is the
Prabhu.
day of the demigods.
Yeah.
So
So
one
and
Uttarayana Dakshinayana will combine one day, which is 1 year here. So
okay.
now our 1 year multiplied by 360 is 1 year of 360 years is 1 year of the demigods, and into 100. So like that, 36,000 solar years is 100 celestial years.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhupada.